B'Shem Hashem Naaseh v'Natzliach. Shiur Torah, Baruch Hashem, lots of good things happening. First of all, we have another Parashat. That's also a good thing. We can learn another Parashat together. Second thing, the videos, Baruch Hashem, that we're doing every week and publishing on Facebook, on YouTube, on Google, Twitter, and all these social media are gaining some serious popularity, Baruch Hashem. We got, once in a while you get a little gift. Hashem tells you you're doing a good job. But, we haven't become Moshe Rabbeinu yet. So he sends different people to say nice things. And today I got something, one woman said something like these Shiur Torah changing her life. And it gives you a good feeling that Hashem's Torah is so pleasing to people, because to the point where they're taking time out of their day and watching it. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just the messenger. I just say what Hashem wrote, and the people listen. It's not, you don't take credit to yourself. But the amazing thing is that it shows that it's a proof of itself of the divine nature of the Torah. How is it a proof? Because Hashem has told us through Chazal, the only way that a person can reach a state of happiness is with Torah. Only way. A person that does not have Torah in his life cannot be happy. Impossible. It's like asking a monkey to build a rocket ship. He can try, he can ask all of his friends to come. They're not going to build a rocket ship. Same thing with a man. Or a woman can never reach happiness without Torah in their life. So when people take time out of their day and they say, listen, this Torah is changing my life, you see the proof of Torah live. See, wow, see? Somebody spent a couple of hours to watch a shiur, and already it made their life better. So Baruch Hashem, that's, the videos are gaining popularity, and that's one of the greatest things that you can possibly do is to zakot harabim, to benefit the public. The Facebook group, Baruch Hashem, is closing in on almost 2,000 people. I think the last time I told you guys about it, maybe a month ago or so, we had about maybe 1,500, 1,600. So Baruch Hashem, that's growing also. And also one good news, Chazak u'Baruch Warren, that is not here yet, but he's really organizing something very nice. We're going to start doing a shiur in Mozart Cafe every Monday night. Every Monday night at 8 o'clock. Here in Boca Raton, it's right around the corner. We're going to start every Monday night. So we still have our Tuesday shiur, regular shiur. So we're going to have a shiur at Mozart every Monday night. Different than this shiur, we're going to start from the beginning, meaning in a sense we're going to go with a lot of different proofs, the creation, the ABCs of Judaism, some things that we've gone over already in this shiur, some new stuff, but we're going to try to attract
what time?
Much more people. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock every Monday. And I'm sure there's food there, and I think that Warren arranged some type of better deal over there. I think it's either going to be free food or discounted. I'm not really 100% sure. I'm pretty sure it's going to be free. But either way, you should come, and it should be very entertaining. And we'll try to go over a lot of different things that give us somewhat of a connection to this Torah that was written over 3,300 years ago. The second thing is try to understand why we're even doing these mitzvot. Similar to what we do here, but again, a different type of shiur. And try to reach some new people. So a new crowd. Some people in the world, a lot of, unfortunately, most Jews in the world are not keeping most of the mitzvot. There's a few things that people do, whether it's a mezuzah or brit milah. Maybe they come to shul on the holidays. But unfortunately, there are a certain minimum requirement that a Jew needs to do in order for him to reach the next world. In order for him to get to Olam Haba, there is a minimum requirement. What most people don't understand is when the name Rambam is mentioned, everyone immediately that's not familiar with Torah is scared. Like, wow, that's too much, that's too high level, it's too high. Maybe they're machmirim, overdoing it. The amazing thing about the Rambam is that everything that he wrote is the minimum requirement. There's no such thing as machmir. There's no such thing as above and beyond what you need to do. Some of the other books that were written after him or even before him would tell you there's certain people that do above and beyond, and they specifically say it's above and beyond what, like for example, in the Gemara it talks about, when I talk about the laws of kashrut, and how much time to wait between milk and meat, one of the sages says, I wait 6 hours, but I'm not like my father who used to wait a whole day. His father obviously is doing above and beyond what he needs to do, but he says, I do 6 hours. The Rambam in his books, talking about old halachot, which is where the Shulchan Aruch came from, he's telling you the minimum requirement. So the minimum requirement is what we try to teach. I don't try to teach you anything, above and beyond. First, the person needs to get used to doing all of the minimum requirements for many years. Then you could add things that are above and beyond what's necessary. So people need to understand is there's certain things that are minimum requirements. Obviously, Shabbat is a minimum requirement. Kashrut is a minimum requirement. Tefillin is a minimum requirement. Someone can say, listen, I give tzedakah, I keep Shabbat, but tefillin, here and there. I do on Mondays and Tuesdays once a month. That's not good. It's like saying, you know what? You should only eat once a week. Once in a while, you live. Not a good life. Same thing. Same thing with Torah, limud Torah, learning Torah. A person that is going to get to the next world has to get to the point of understanding that limud Torah, learning Torah, is something that he needs to do every day. You don't need to learn from morning to night. You need to learn some type of Torah every day. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, whatever you can do every day. And that's one of the things that we need to understand. Before I forget, I actually forgot to say it right away, but Baruch Hashem, the Shiur also will be for the zchut of refuah shlema for Gavriel Dosteman bat Alona. May he have refuah shlema.
Amen.
Bezrat Hashem. And also the little baby that we talked about last week. I still haven't heard good news yet. Ruby's daughter, Eden Malka bat Ravit. May Hashem give her refuah shlema.
Amen.
Give her parents nachat from this very difficult test. But that's what we were talking about before the shiur, before the camera went on. We were talking about tests. The tests that Hashem gives us are for our own benefit. And that's one of the main things that a Jew needs to understand. You're going to have different tests in your life. And those tests are for your own benefit. If a Jew realizes, the sooner a Jew realizes that these tests are for his own benefit, the easier it's going to be to pass the tests. But if a Jew thinks that every time he's getting a test, and these tests are not fun things, they're getting a flat tire, losing some money, losing your wallet, having a fight with the wife, chas v'chalila, having a problem with work, having a problem with parnasah, having a problem even with limud Torah. Sometimes you learn Torah, you don't understand anything. You learn 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, 10 hours, you don't understand anything.
Wait,
It's like, I'm trying, I don't understand anything.
Don't you still get
punishment?
sachar for that though?
Of course you get sachar.
So that kind of encourages you.
Right. Problem is that we, as human beings, don't have a mind that is always connected to the sachar of Olam Haba. We need to see things here.
Yeah, it's not practical.
And that's the thing. Most people, if I tell you, listen, if you do mitzvah of tefillin, there's not enough sachar in all of the world to pay you for 1 day of tefillin. You can't
It's not
imagine.
different numbers. But what if somebody keeps like all the agricultural mitzvot and does like the really mitzvot that people are not aware of, but they don't do Shabbat tefillin so much. There's so much. They're not so stringent in their kashrut. Is that the equivalent of also doing Shabbat the common ones that
No.
Shabbat tefillin?
No, Shabbat is, there's
So let's say
three.
you do like 10 agricultural mitzvot and like shluch haken and Orlan, Shemitah, they're really machmir on that. They do kilayim, like everything.
The way we know, the Chazal tells us that a person should never think that one mitzvah is more important than another.
So they're all unequal.
No, hold on. A person should never give one mitzvah credit over the other and try more on one over the other because he doesn't necessarily know the exact schar, the exact reward for each mitzvah.
Or the exact meaning of the chukim.
But what do we know? But what we do know, how do we know? How do we measure the mitzvot and their magnitude based on punishment? Because we don't know how good is really good. We don't even know, as human beings, we don't even know what is good. Most of the things we think are good are bad. What do people think is good? Money, sex, material.
Food.
Material.
Yeah.
Food. Most of those things generally lead to bad. Too much of it will lead to bad. In this Parashat Shiur, which we'll go over in a few minutes, Hashem, one of the things that is one of the many mitzvot that is talked about in this parasha is that Hashem is telling us that we're going to have to ask for a king. But this king, which you would think is above the law, has restrictions. And he specifically tells this king, do not have too much money. And focus your time too much on money and too much on women. Do not have too many women. Now if anybody would ever get the credit of being above the law, it would be the king. Why? Because who's picking the king? It's not Congress. It's not an election. It's not the elections here on CNN and on Fox News and who has a bigger campaign and who got more donations. Who picks the king? Hashem Yitbarach.
It's a monarchy. It's a theocratic monarchy.
Hashem picks the king. Hashem picks the king. Hashem himself picks the king. So if you would think that anybody is above the law, it would be him. But no, Hashem says no. So we don't even know what's good, is the point. But we do know what's bad. We do know the magnitude of bad because there's enough bad in the world for us to understand the meaning of bad. So for example, we know what fire is. We know what fire is. We know fire destroys.
Yeah,
It can also help create. We know what pain is. But we don't know exactly the full capacity of fire, but to give us a little bit of an understanding, the fire we know of, the biggest fire we know of in this world, is only 1/60th of the fire in Gehinnom. 1 part of 60.
Is that the same thing with like reward and everything? Like what you feel good in this world is like pishishim in olam haba. In something good.
It's even more. There's no concept of good that's enough. So for example, all of the good,
So it's
to explain the good, they say this. Chazal says this. For someone to understand olam haba is impossible. Why? Because you're still limited with a body, with a flesh and bone, and you are limited with this seal. But to give you somewhat of a illustration of good in olam haba, all of the good of all of the people that ever lived, so whether it's the biggest kings, rashas, or good ones, all of the kings, all of the celebrities, all of the athletes, all of the models, all of the tzaddikim, all of the, anyone that you want to imagine, all of the people that ever lived. So figure hundreds of billions of people, or hundreds of millions of people, whatever number you want to figure out, doesn't matter. All of them together, from the beginning of the world to the end of the world, combined, they all had some type of good in their life. Most of regular life is bad, by the way. If you haven't noticed, most of people's life is generally bad, and there's moments of good. That's what normal life is. Most of life is aggravation.
Which people?
Most of life is generally aggravation, and then there's moments of good.
People.
Right.
Not for all people. Okay.
Right. So now, if you combine all of the good that each one of these people had, and even if it's all of their life is good, all of them together, through all of the generations, and you combine it to one pile, you have one box of good. All of that is not worth 1 hour of olam haba for a tzaddik.
So it's much easier to understand Gehinnom than olam haba.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's my point. So now what do we know about the bad, and the mitzvot. We know that there are certain mitzvot that if you do them, there's unlimited good. If you don't do them, it's unlimited bad. For example, Shabbat. You mentioned Shabbat, and Shabbat is one of the foundations. There's 3 foundations for a person to be a Jew. Shabbat, Tefillin, and Brit. A person who does keep Shabbat, does Tefillin 6 days a week, with the exception of holidays, and keeps his Brit, not just having the Brit Milah, but also no Zera Levatala, which is wasting the seed, that person is considered a Jew. Someone who violates Shabbat, someone who drives on Shabbat, someone who, violates Shabbat in the many, many different ways, 39 melachot that he's not allowed to do. Someone, for example, drives to the Knesset, like many people do for some strange reason. No one tells them they're not allowed to. Someone who violates Shabbat is not only putting themselves on a first-class ticket to the bad place, but is actually not considered Jewish. There's 7 places in the Shulchan Aruch. There are several places in the Gemara. There are countless places in the Torah Bechtav, in this Torah that we're reading, the Chumash, in the Tanakh, in the Zohar. In every single Jewish book, you will find the foundation for what I'm saying. So it's not something I wrote or I made up with my logic. It's outright written. A Jew that violates Shabbat, Mot yumat v'nichreta nefesh me'amea. It's Parashat Kitisa. What is mot yumat v'nichreta nefesh me'amea? Mot is death. Yumat is also death. It's not going to be 2 deaths. Why die twice? Mot, death upon death. Death in this world. Death in the next world, meaning no olam haba. Okay, so I die twice. Fine. No good. I'm already in bad shape. But then after that, he tells me, meaning my soul was cut off from the nation. I already died. What do you need to cut me off for? The person, no. He already has no olam haba. We talked about that. He's done already.
Oh, so complete disassociation with...
Completely disassociation from Judaism. Not considered Jewish. Considered a goy in every way. Meaning that if you have 10 people in the shul, trying to make a minyan, one of them is not a shomer Shabbat, you now have 9 people. He's not considered a part of the minyan.
For a kosher minyan, although there are minyanim who have...
minyanim, one shomer Shabbat, 9 not keeping.
That's not a minyan, I just said. A minyan needs to, in order for a minyan to be a minyan, it needs to have 10 shomer Shabbat.
But isn't also shomer abrit shomer tefillin too? Or not?
Shomer abrit, shomer tefillin, of course. But shomer Shabbat is the foundation of Judaism. How do we know it's the foundation of Judaism? Judaism does not exist without Shabbat. We know this because we have the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments, all 613 mitzvot come from the 10 Commandments.
So what you're saying is 90% of the people, of the Jewish people, are not Jewish.
Probably closer to 80%, yes. Closer to 80%.
Jewish, but if they violate...
Anyone that violates Shabbat is not considered Jewish based on Torah.
What about the power of the tshuva?
Someone does tshuva, of course.
No, but if you have one who not keep Shabbat, there is the chance he can make tshuva. And tshuva
if he dies without making tshuva,
no, I spoke.
Then he's a big problem.
No, I'm talking about the minyan. You have 10 people, and one of them don't keep Shabbat.
Right.
There is the chance if you're gonna pray. There is the little chance you're gonna make tshuva.
During that minyan, you're saying?
Yeah, you say it's not considered like a minyan.
But at the time, if you only have 10 people, and 9 of them are shomer Shabbat and 1 is not shomer Shabbat, you cannot start a minyan because 1 is not a shomer Shabbat. Whether he's going to keep Shabbat or not, after that,
there is the chance
it still doesn't. You started something that doesn't exist.
It's like breaking Shabbat or not keeping Shabbat entirely, or is it what?
There's no such thing as half of a Shabbat. There's either you keep Shabbat or you don't keep Shabbat. Meaning, when someone
keeps Shabbat, but actually they tore something.
No.
They realize that they
no. There's different levels. There's mezid and there's shogeg. someone that intentionally violates Shabbat, meaning someone that's driving on Shabbat, watches TV on Shabbat, smokes cigarettes on Shabbat, things like that, turns on the radio, turns on television, does all of those things that is obviously a violation. And he's doing it on purpose. Not like he came out of the bathroom accidentally, reflex-wise, because he's used to shutting off the light. So he shut off the light by accident. That's called shogeg. That means accidental. Because he wasn't thinking for a second, he violated Shabbat. It's still a sin, don't get me wrong, but it's not getting cut off from the nation. But someone that's driving to shul, or someone that's smoking cigarettes, or someone that's doing things that are obvious, befaresia, it's an obvious sin, that person is in a bad situation. If he dies that way, he's in a very, very bad place. If he does tshuva, then he could be in a higher place than most Jews that have ever lived, because the power of someone that does true tshuva can get a higher place in heaven than a person that's been religious from the day they were born. So we'll answer some more questions, but to finalize the one thing in regards to Shabbat, since you asked the issue, and I think it's important enough to mention it in every shiur, the reason we know that there is no Judaism without Shabbat, specifically Shabbat, more than anything else, is because if you look at the Matan Torah, before we got even the Torah Bichtav, before we got the Torah Be'al Peh, the written Torah and the oral Torah, we got the Ten Commandments, right? We got Moses and Am Yisrael heard the first two commandments and saw the words of Hashem in the Shamayim. Amen. And they saw these words, they saw the sounds, not just heard them. They heard the Ten Commandments. The first three commandments are between Hashem and the nation. Believe in one God. Don't use Hashem's name in vain. Don't have idol worship. Those are the first three. Those are obvious things.
The 613 are all connected to those, right?
All 613 come from those. But those 10 are foundation. It's like you have a building, you can't build the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th floor unless you have a foundation for even the first floor. So the 10 are the foundation.
Is the one that corresponds to Shomer Brit Al Tachmod? Is that the one that corresponds?
It's one of them, yes.
Okay, that corresponds to that. Okay.
So now you have the first three
Not enough.
between us and Hashem. Okay, it's obvious that if we believe in more than one God, the rest of the 9 are not relevant. It's obvious that if we worship idols, the rest of the 9 are not relevant. It's obvious that if we use Hashem's name in vain, like it's Joey and Steve, the rest of the 9 are not relevant. Right? So those first 3, between us and God. Fine. Number 4, Shabbat. Observe the Shabbat in one place and keep the Shabbat in another place. It's 2 places in the Torah. It says the 10 Commandments. One is observe, one is keep. Both of them mean 2 different things. But the point is that Shabbat is number 4. After number 5, respect your parents. Number 6, do not murder. And if you notice, there's an order of importance for all 10. First one, I'm the only God. Obviously, if they think there's more than one God, you're too much of a fool to even read the other 9. We got that. Second one, so we know there's an order. What does this mean? It means that Shabbat, a violator of Shabbat, is considered worse than someone who is a professional murderer. Meaning, the sin of murder, even though it's against our logic, Hashem's logic is not like our logic. Let's not fool ourselves. Hashem is nothing like us. We try to replicate His midot, because that's part of our goal in life. But Hashem's thinking is not like our thinking. Hashem doesn't change His mind like man does. Hashem doesn't change His opinion. Hashem is nothing like us. He has no body. He has nothing resembling a body. And everything that He does is for our own benefit, regardless of whether we understand or not. Technically, the reason to do every single mitzvah in the Torah is because Hashem said so. The fact that there are certain elements of benefit to it is great. But the real reason of why to do every mitzvah is because Hashem said so. So which means Someone that observes Shabbat is already at a point where he is in a good position. He's not considered an idol worshiper. Someone who violates Shabbat is considered an idol worshiper. That's why in every place that idol worship is mentioned in the Torah, Shabbat is right next to it. The Shabbat violator and the idol worshiper are one and the same. The guy that bought a statue from Chinatown and is bowing to it like a moron every day is the same thing as the guy that's driving to Bet Knesset because he thinks he's doing a mitzvah for praying in a minyan. Same thing. Our logic doesn't let us understand it. But that's Hashem. And you have to understand that Hashem wants for our benefit. He's telling us, you want Shabbat? You want to be a Jew? You have to keep Shabbat. The guy that gets murdered, if you see the punishment, it says in the Torah, the punishment for the murder is mavet, karet. He gets death penalty. But the punishment for a violator of Shabbat is mot yumat v'nicheta nefesh ma'ameh. It's three different things. Death in this world, same thing as the murderer. Death in the next world, the murderer didn't get. And not considered Jewish, cut off from the nation, he doesn't get either. So he murdered 87 people. I violated Shabbat. But I'm worse. And that's what the thing that, again, we have to understand that we cannot necessarily understand everything, but we have to obey it. And if more people understood the significance of Shabbat, I promise you they will keep it. And that's the one thing that's missing. That's why, whether it's 70% or 80% of Am Yisrael today, Hashem Erachem, that are not keeping Shabbat, it's only one of two reasons. One is they don't know. Two, they don't believe. They don't know. Most people know what Shabbat is. They know it's a certain day of the week. Shabbat, the seventh day of the week, is only called Shabbat because of Judaism. There's no other reason of why there's even 7 days in a week. No other religion has a reason to have 7 days in a week. There's no scientific reason to have 7 days a week. The only reason there's 7 days a week is because of the Torah, which is actually one of the best proofs of the divine nature of the Torah, of how it came before everything else. Because the only reason, the only source of 7 days a week is the Torah. So everyone knows that there's 7 days a week. Even the biggest fool in history knows there's 7 days a week. The seventh day in Hebrew is called Shabbat. Even non-Jews knows there's something called the Sabbath. They call it Saturday. Some of them call it Sabbath. Point is, everyone knows that there's something called Shabbat. Call it whatever you want, but they know it's a different type of day. The Muslims...
Even then, is sort of a way of keeping it, because they can be in the middle of Tel Aviv on Shabbat. They're saying, B'yom Shabbat. That means, it's a contradiction. Shabbat means to rest. Yet they're not resting. They should call it Yom Shvi'i. They really want to...
Well, that's why the Torah decided what it's called, not people. People decided to change the Hebrew language over the last 100 years. But
in
regardless
Spanish,
of that.
it's called Sabbato.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the point is that we have in every language it's called something else, but it all has
In
similar
Spanish,
roots.
It's called Shabbat.
It's really similar.
בצרפתית?
Samedi. Voilà.
We all have to understand that these
Sunday.
Yom HaSabbath.
religions, other religions, for example, Islam,
Samedi.
Friday.
Friday is their Shabbat.
Samedi.
Christianity, Sunday is their Shabbat. But everybody's trying to compete with the Shabbat. Everyone knows that there's a concept of Shabbat. So there's no Jew in the world that can tell you, I never heard of something called Shabbat. Maybe they don't know the significance of it, but they know it exists. The other group of people that doesn't believe, they say, listen, Torah is nice, it's a nice book. Some people call it the best story ever told. But I don't really believe it. I don't believe it. There's some guy named Moses went up to this mountain, hung out there for 40 days and 40 nights 3 times, so 120 days, without eating, without drinking, and spoke to this other thing. You want to call him God, you want to call him whatever you want to call him. And came back and he gave us a bunch of rules. I don't believe the story. It's a nice story though. I don't believe he's part of the sea.
They have nothing, you can prove that it's divine. How can they...
Of course you can prove it. You have to understand, most people don't want to believe the Torah. It's not necessarily that they don't believe the Torah, it's that they don't want to believe the Torah. The reason why they don't want to believe the Torah is because believing the Torah obligates you. If you believe the Torah is divine, if you believe the Torah is 100% from God, that means that if you are not following what it says, you're crazy. If you truly believe that God said and wrote everything that's in the Torah, then you would do it. So what does it mean? It means if we don't do it, we're either crazy or there's a certain part of us that doesn't believe it. Some people have a bigger part of them that doesn't believe it. Some people have a smaller part of them that doesn't believe it. Generally, a person needs to understand that believing the Torah is divine, obligates you. So that's why most people, you tell them, listen, come to a Shiur Torah, at a different place. Sometimes you have to entice them with free pizza. Sometimes you have to entice them with free food. Sometimes you have to entice them with fancy plays and big shows and all those things, because the Torah is not really that interesting to them, but the free food maybe. Because the Yetzer Hara is too strong.
But some people will not come because there is a pizza.
Maybe. So Bezrat Hashem, listen, we covered Shabbat many times. You can see some of the other shurim we have on YouTube about it, but we'll cover some other things over here. But to start off with the parasha, this is Parashat Shoftim, Shoftim v'Shotrim. תיתן לך בכל שעריך אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך לשבתך ושפטו את העם משפט צדק. Judges and officers shall you appoint in all your cities, which Hashem your God gives you for your tribes, and they shall judge the people with the righteous judgment. Okay, so he's saying, this is in essence the literal translation of it, is that he's telling us that we need to have the Bedin, the Sanhedrin. We need to have laws in this world and a way to implement them, a way to enforce them. But if you look at the order, it's a little strange. When someone violates the law, who do they see first? The cop?
They see the Shoftim first, in a sense.
Or the judge? They see the cop first, right? So why does it say judges and officers? The reason it says judges and officers is because he's saying for us, for someone to be a kosher Jew, they have to be a judge for themselves. They have to judge each one of their actions. Judge the 7 openings you have in your head. What 7 openings? You have 2 ears, your nose, your eyes, and your mouth. Someone that wants to be a kosher Jew has to monitor the 7 openings that he has in his head. Make sure that you don't listen to Lashon Hara. Make sure you don't speak Lashon Hara. Make sure you don't see a woman that's not modest. And so much so that you're not even allowed to smell your wife when she's nidah. Someone that wants to be a kosher Jew will have judge himself in every action that he does. And if that doesn't work, remind himself that he has to be a cop for himself, that there's a punishment for this. That's why in Masechet Brachot it says, if someone has the Yetzer Hara, you should do Kriyat Shema. You should say Shema Yisrael. Someone is about to sin with a woman. Someone is about to sin, steal some money from a customer, overcharge him, do some type of sin. Hashem Erechem, how many sins we have in this world? He's about to make a sin. He says, before you make a sin, say Kriyat Shema, remind yourself that there's Hashem. Not enough. Learn Torah. Take Sefer Tehillim, take Gemara, open it, read a few sentences, get yourself connected to Torah again. Not enough. Remind him of the day that he's going to die. Why? I don't understand. Why remind him of the day he's going to die? Because if someone is truly reminded of the day they're going to die, they know that this life is only a corridor. This life is like a dream in comparison to the real life. The real life is eternal. What kind of life that's going to be is up to you. Someone that's reminded that the day is going to come, he's going to say, for this theft, for this sex crime, for this violation of whatever kind, I'm going to have to go in front of the judge and jury. Go in front of the judge, I'm going to have to pay for this, I'll have to pay the bill. I can't just order all the food that I want without paying the bill. One day I'm going to have to do it. So if we remind the guy, that's going to happen Okay, I know that this is not worth it. Reminds me of a joke to lighten up the tensity of the shiur a little bit. One time there was a guy, that big guy, big fat guy, walks into a restaurant and he looks at the menu. The Baal Habayit, the owner of the place, says to him, "What can I do for you?" He goes, "Give me one of everything." He has a roast, he has a big chicken, he has chicken cutlets, chicken fingers, he has this, he has macaroni, he got this one and that one, everything you could possibly imagine. This kind of soup and that kind of soup and this salad and that salad. I mean, he's ordering enough food for an army. I mean, he's a big guy, but the owner has never seen anything like it. Baruch haba. The owner has never seen anyone eat so much. And the guy starts eating and eating and eating and eating. After he finishes eating, the Baal Habayit comes to him.
Speaking of eating, I'm hungry.
Baal Habayit comes to him and he says, "Okay, did you enjoy?" He goes, "Yeah, no, but I'm still hungry. Give me another round of everything." Baal Habayit's like, "Well, you know what? I've never seen it. It's a little bit crazy that he's eating so much, but it's good for my business." Continues eating another roast, another chicken, another rice, another chuled, another couscous, another this one, another that one. Guy's eating, eating, eating. He's never seen anything like it. Long story short, he gets up to the point. The Baal Habayit is looking at the bill. We got to $2,500 for one guy. $2,500. Baruch Hashem, he's saying, is a yofi. I made my day with this one guy. It's only 12 o'clock. I already made $2,500. I'm going home after this. He comes to the guy. He goes, "Oh, so didn't you enjoy?" He goes, "Yeah, I enjoyed. Everything was great." "You full?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm full." He says, "Okay." He gives him the bill. $2,500. And the guy takes it. He goes, No, I'm not paying." "What do you mean you're not paying? You have to pay." He goes, No, I don't pay for food. I go to different places, I don't pay." He says, "What do you mean you don't pay? You ate $2,500. He goes, "Yeah, I paid. I'm not paying you. What are you going to do?" Guy stands up. He's a big shmil, giant guy. The owner is a little guy. What is he going to do? Fight him? What is he going to do? So the Baal Habayit, the owner, is thinking to himself, he goes, "You know what, I can't take this guy or anything like that." He goes, "You know what, fine, you're not going to pay, I understand. You fooled me. But do me one favor. See next door, there's another restaurant. It's my competition. Go there and do the same thing to him." He goes, "Oh, he's the one that sent me here." So now Hashem is telling us not to be like this guy. Before you make the violation of eating too much, before you make the violation of stealing from people, be your own judge first. Be your own judge first. Remember what Hashem has told us in the Torah. And if being your own judge is not enough, remember, you have to be your own cop. You have to remind yourself that there's going to be a time that we have to pay the bill. Next verse says, "Lo tateh mishpat, lo takir panim, v'lo tikach shochad. Ki ha-shochad ya'aver einei chachamim, v'yisalef divrei tzadikim." This is one of my favorite verses. It says, "You shall not pervert judgment. You shall not respect someone's presence." Oh no, I'm sorry. This is... Yeah. "You shall not respect someone's presence. You shall not accept a bribe. For the bribe will blind the eyes of the wise and make just words crooked." Someone that wants to be a judge, it's obvious that they cannot take bribes. Because if they take bribes, that means that their judgment will be biased. But there's all types of bribes in life. Bribes don't always necessarily need to go to just judges. It's obvious that a judge cannot take a bribe, whether it's in a bet din, Shem Erachem, or it's in a secular court. One of the things we need to know as Jews, a Jew is not allowed to go to a secular court unless he's forced to. Meaning if you're sued in a secular court, and you have to go or else the consequences will be too dear, then you have to go. But if you have the option, you're not allowed to go. As a matter of fact, is the law is so great and so harsh about going to secular court is that some of Chazal consider it completely avodah zarah.
If you just go for
Meaning you actually use the system. You go and sue somebody in a secular court. Someone, I don't know, stole $5,000
What
from you.
about
or
associating the dinay of the malchut that you live in, the din?
the deen of Malchut, the deen that you have to obey by is the deen of the Torah. The Rambam says that even if someone goes to a secular court, or judges in a secular, let's say he's the judge, he's not even one of the guys suing, he's the judge.
A Jewish judge, you're saying?
Yeah, he's a Jewish judge in a secular court. And he's using the laws of the Torah to judge. He's still considered a Rasha. He's still considered evil. He's still considered wicked. He's still sinning a great sin that's very close to avodah zarah, very close to idol worship. Because the laws of the secular court, many of them, if you noticed, are against the Torah. Most of them are against the Torah. So, for example, if you look at the sin, for example, that they have in America, like for example, like insider trading. Insider trading, technically, according to the Torah, is legal. According to some countries, is legal. Like if you go to Japan, insider trading is, for example, if you don't know what that is, it's a.
Well, how is it legal? But wouldn't it say you should have equal weights and measures? You shouldn't.
Well,
Isn't that sort of like a bribe?
No. Insider trading is, let's say, for example, I know of a company, and let's say my uncle is selling his company. And I go to my friend and tell him, listen, my uncle is going to sell this company in the open market. Before he goes into the open market, you should buy it. The guy buys it. In America, that's illegal. And someone that does it can get 25, 30 years in jail. Like it's happened with several people over the years. There's one guy that did it excessively, but he was a multi-billionaire, but none of that money is worth anything to him because he's going to be in jail for the next 2 decades. Rajaratnam or something like that. According to the Torah, that's not even illegal. Because it's just like, for example, I say, listen, my uncle has a house, and before he gives it to the real estate brokers to sell it, you should go to him and buy it. Is there anything wrong with that? No. Why should he put it in the open market? Go there and buy it. Tell the guy, listen, I'm looking for a house. What do you want? $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $1 million, whatever you want to pay for. If you agree to the price, you buy the house. There's nothing wrong with that. The secular court believes there is. The problem also with the secular court is that they're full of hypocrites. Why? Because that very same insider trading law that put Rajaratnam in jail for 25 years, put Martha Stewart in jail for 1 year, doesn't make sense, and put none of the government officials of the U.S. Congress in jail ever, when they do it every day.
Have you seen the movie Inside Job? All those, they never got
Every day, there's a book called...
governmental administrations.
what is it called?
They get promoted.
There's a book that I've read in the past of all the government officials that took advantage of insider trading every single day. It's legal for them to do it. Not only is it not illegal, it's legal. It's legal. It's 100% legal for them to use, if they use for Congress. It's 100% legal for them to use insider information to make their stock investments. 100%. And that's why if you look at their public records of their trading, you see that a government official that started, when he first got his job in Congress, he had a net worth of $1 million. His salary is $140,000, $150,000. The highest government job gets $400,000. That's the president. Which means no one else gets more. He gets $150,000. After 15 years, after 10 years, let's say, so you can do the math even easier. After 10 years, if he didn't eat, if he didn't drink, if he didn't pay rent, if he didn't have any bills, and he also didn't pay taxes, how much is 150,000 times 10? 1.5 million. Right? If his money grew at an average rate of 7%, assuming he had it from day one, the most he would have is how much? 3 million. 7% times 10 years is 7% for 10 years is 100%, meaning that 1.5 million becomes 3 million. But you see that very same guy ate, he drank, he used planes, he paid rent, he paid taxes, and somehow he has 35, 40, 50 million dollars. It's a mathematical impossibility for him to get this money from his job. Where do you get this money from?
Yeah, really.
And it's not one, it's not two, it's not three, tens and tens of them. Every one of them. One guy comes in with a net worth of 2 million, after 10, 15 years, he has a net worth of 150 million. From what? You make $100,000 a year. Where are you getting this $100 million from?
Bribes.
Even if you sold books, you were most popular author, you made $5 million a year selling books, you're still not going to make that money. That's the thing. So the secular court is considered idol worship. It's considered against the Torah because it's the laws of Sodom and Gomorrah. They make whatever they want to make. For me it's good, for you it's not good. Your money is my money, and my money is my money. That's
Why can't you put all the financial stuff aside and just, follow the social laws?
Because if you make one exception, there's no end to it. That's why you can't say that. Listen, if I keep one,
Stone, you're equating.
The Torah is divine. The Torah is divine. If there's a Sefer Torah that comes from Israel, someone wrote a Sefer Torah, and it comes to Israel. But if you notice that when it comes from Israel, they put it in a suitcase and they throw it in a plane. But Chas v'Chalila, if a Sefer Torah falls in a synagogue, what does everybody do? Everybody has to fast. It's a big, big problem. So if a Sefer Torah falls on the floor, everyone has to fast. It's a big tzara. It's a big problem if a Sefer Torah falls.
So that's what they don't.
So how is it possible?
Somebody told me that in the show that's.
How is it possible
That's true.
that they put? It's not true. It's 100% true. How is it possible that they take that very same Sefer Torah?
For one night or a week? He didn't say.
How long they have to fast?
He didn't say it was. He said it wasn't a month because I was.
No, you don't have to fast. How are you going to fast? You're going to die after you fast.
No, every night. Or you need
Yeah, you fast. Some
Yeah,
people
within
fast
the
for a
night.
night. There's different minagim. Point is that it's a big problem.
Okay.
It's a sign of big trouble. It's a big problem. Long story short. The point of the story is, how is it possible that on one end, it fell, we all are in big problems, but when it came here, they threw it in the plane, they threw it off the plane, they threw it in the cab, like it was a suitcase.
It was in a case, though.
So what? It was in a case the other way also. It was also in a case. How? The reason why is because there was a few missing letters. They did not complete the book. The tzaddik in the back, that's been in our shiurim and has heard this before, just told you the answer.
Sure.
The key
Oh, they
is
said it 99% complete. You're
they
saying.
did not complete the book. Meaning there's a few letters missing. Even if there's one letter missing in a Sefer Torah, it's not considered a Sefer Torah.
But even even the part on a yud or above or something.
Even if there's a missing letter or a wrong letter of any kind, the Sefer is not complete. It's not considered a Sefer Torah. It's not holy. What does that mean? It means that the Torah, it's either everything or nothing. It's either divine or it's human. It's either you do what the Torah says because Hashem told us, or you make man-made laws. There's no such thing as using the secular court by choice. If you don't have a choice, then of course, for example, last week I had to deal with some nonsense from my former business life. And last Tuesday, from 9 o'clock till about 6 o'clock at night, I was in a hearing. So you tell yourself, this is a complete waste of time because this is not limud Torah, this is not a mitzvah, this is not this, but you're actually seeing how demented the law is. Because I'm going against a government official. So you would think, I'm working for my interest, he's working for the government interest. Right? Problem is, if you work with that logic, you would think that if I'm working for my own interest, I should be the liar. And he should be the honest guy. He should be the right guy. He should be white. I should be black. He should be the tzaddik. I should be the rasha. Right? That's the way it's supposed to work. He's government. The opposite. I said everything that I knew that was true. I said it. He did not stop lying from the minute he started talking. He had 3 lawyers and 1 assistant. And they didn't stop lying. They did not stop lying for a moment. Every sentence that came out of the mouth had some type of lie. Why? Because it's the laws of Sodom and Gomorrah. Laws of Sodom and Gomorrah have no limitation. There's no rules. There's rules that they write, but only when it's convenient. Only when it's convenient, I'm going to use them. And that's the thing that we have to understand, is that the Torah is divine, and that's what Hashem says in the very next verse, Tzedek, tzedek tirdof, leman tichyeh v'yarashta et haaretz, asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach. It says, righteousness, righteousness shall you pursue, so that you will live and possess the land that Hashem your God gives you. What does it mean, righteousness, righteousness? Why tzedek, tzedek? Why not tzedek? Okay, righteousness. Why twice? Don't ever think that you can do a mitzvah by doing a sin first. You have to be righteous, but only in a righteous way. Don't go steal so you can give tzedakah. Don't go drive on Shabbat to go to Bet Knesset. Don't go give some Talmid Chacham some money, but you force him to do things that he doesn't want to do. You force him to come to your house at strange hours and give you blessings. You force him to write you extra mezuzot for free. You force him to do all types of things, anything. That's an averah, that's a sin. You do mitzvah with no return. Don't be a lender. Mitzvot are things that we do with no expectation. I give someone tzedakah because I give tzedakah, because the mitzvah.
The best quietly.
But to give someone tzedakah with an expectation that maybe one day he's going to return something to me, maybe he's going to give me a blessing, maybe he's going to save me somewhere, maybe he's going to judge, he's one of the dayanim in the bet din, maybe if I ever need his help, he's going to help me out. That's shochad. That's a bribe. It's a major sin in the Torah. There was one time a dayan, there was a rasha, and he was known to take shochad, he was known to take bribes. But he was too honorable to take it in his hand. So what he would do, outside of the courtroom, he would leave his two boots. He said the right boot is for the defendant, and the left boot is for the prosecutor. Before I go into the room, I'm going to lift the shoes. I'm going to lift the boots. Whichever one's heavier, that's the one I'm going to judge for. If the right one is heavier with cash, he's going to win. The left one is heavier, I'm going to win for him. The case doesn't matter. So that's why the whole city knew, if I want to win my case, I got to put money in my boot. Said that. One day he comes to the boot, he sees that the defendant is heavy. Prosecutor, much heavier. Wow, Chazaku Ba'uch, he tells himself. Is a yofi? This guy knows the value of a good judge. He doesn't even look, doesn't count the money, nothing. He just lifts the boot. He counts the money only when he gets home. He goes, he judges the case, obviously, for the prosecutor, the one that gave him the heavier boot. He goes home. He wasn't as smart as Nissan. He takes the boot. He opens the boot and he sees it's full of rocks. He says, what dishonest people are in this world. What dishonest people are in this world. He doesn't look in the mirror and says he's the dishonest person. Eze nochlim yesh ba'olam. Eze nochlim yesh ba'olam. Hey, what a reshaim there is in the world. Avdu alai. So now, everyone needs to understand that there's all forms of shochad. If someone is going to do a mitzvah, do the mitzvah for the reason of doing the mitzvah. Don't do it because you expect something in return. Whether it's doing a mitzvah of giving tzedakah, doing a mitzvah of keeping a certain mitzvah, anything else, you have to do it for the sake of the mitzvah itself. That's why it says, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Because that's the way we can connect with Hashem. Now another thing that you would think of when it comes to judging, that's a big problem, is someone says, you know what, fine, I'm going to be a judge, and I'm always going to rule in favor of the poor guy. I'm going to be a judge in business. And sometimes you see in business, the rich guy is winning, even though when he's not really supposed to win, because he has more money for more lawyers, for more this, for more that. The poor guy, maybe he's right, but he doesn't have the money to defend himself. So the guy says, you know what, I'm going to be Robin Hood, I'm going to be the judge, and I'm always going to vote in favor of the poor guy. Because listen, there's a $10,000 battle here. For the poor guy, it's everything he has. For the rich guy, it's an hour.
Nothing.
It's an hour work. I'm going to vote for the poor guy. What do you guys think? He's allowed or no?
No.
He's helping the poor guy out. Is he allowed?
No.
Nirel?
Depend on the case.
No. Poor guy.
No.
צדק זה צדק.
No.
לא
זה לא
חשוב
צדק.
לעני או לעשיר.
Exactly. It's not tzedek. So the point is that he cannot take the law into his hand. What someone that's taken the law into his hand has to understand, and the reason why it's considered avodah zarah is because he's saying that he's above the law. He's above the Torah. He's in essence becoming avodah zarah himself. And that's the reason why very next verse, after it talks about the laws of judgment, is how to deal with avodah zarah. לא תיטע לך אשרה כל עץ אצל מזבח אדוני אלוהיך אשר תעשה לך. You shall not plant for yourself an idolatrous tree, any tree, near the altar of Hashem your God that you shall make for yourself. And you shall not erect for yourselves a pillar which Hashem your God hates. One, we see the reason why this sentence is right next to judgment.
Trees up there.
You see this, well, this is natural born trees. This is not something that they planted. This is on the kotel. You can't put a tree.
No, I'm saying above on Harvey.
Oh, I don't know.
They planted.
You know how many temples and things you have in
No. He's talking about putting it in a mizbeach, and he's talking about idol worship trees, not any tree, not just putting any tree. Trees that are used for religious purposes. These trees are not used for religious purposes. These trees are just trees. Trees that is used for idol worship is like Christmas tree.
Right.
Christmas tree. It's the New Testament and the Christianity is considered 100% idol worship. So this is actually
something about all Elan. Something like when you need any tree. Elan can signify any tree. Asherah, you're right. Just for.
Asherah. So now he's saying, do not plant for yourself any idolatrous trees. Any trees used for idol worship, you're not allowed to use. This is, number one, a sign that the previous sentence is, even though it's talking about laws of judges, is talking about the magnitude of the sin. We were talking about earlier about Shabbat and things like that. You know only how significant the sin is based on the punishment. So you know that being a rotten judge, a corrupt judge, is the equivalent of idol worship. How do you know that? One of the ways to know it, other than obviously looking into the Gemara, is by seeing what the next verse is, which is talking about idol worship, which is the worst possible sin. So that's number one. Number two, you also see a prophecy in this next verse of what's to come. What's to come? 1,500 years later approximately, there's going to be a religion born called Christianity. About 1,800 years later, there's going to be a religion called Catholicism. Even though they both have the same foundation called the New Testament, they're in essence slightly different from each other. But this is already talking about an idol worship being done with trees. And this is the third parasha in a row that's talking about this form of idol worship. In last week's parasha, they talked about it. They talked about, and the week in Parashat Vayetchanan, which we went over last week as well, and the week before, there's a verse that tells us that one of the punishments that Am Yisrael will get for the sins that they made is being sent into the exile. And in the exile, one of the prophecies is that they're going to do idol worship. And the idol worship they're going to do is pray to the gods of stone and the god of wood. Wood represents the cross, stone represents Mecca. Mecca is the big stone that they have for Islam. This is again written over 3,300 years ago, nearly 2,000 years before Islam was ever thought of, or approximately 1,500 or 1,600 years before Christianity
What
was
does it say
thought of.
about the stone and the wood?
The gods of stone, the god of wood. Meaning we are going to.
Where does it say that?
Where is it? Parashat Vayetchanan. Vayetchanan.
No.
Parashat Vayetchanan. Parashat Vayetchanan is where it says it, but it says it in another place also. But that specific verse in Parashat Vayetchanan, if you use Torah codes, if you want to watch the shiur I have on YouTube, Parashat Vayetchanan, it's very interesting. There's something called Torah codes, which shows in that specific verse is the only verse in the entire Torah that in that one particular verse, there's both, you will find during using Torah codes, the name Yeshu, which is Jesus in Hebrew, and the word Mecca, which is for Islam. So it's in that verse specifically, not just in the page. So a lot of interesting things. The point is that Hashem is showing us that we have not only prophecies in the Torah, but prophecies that are relevant to today. Moving on forward, we don't have that much time left, so let's try to move a little faster. But the next thing that we have is that he talks about the korbanot. לא תשבח לאדוני אלוהיך שור ועשה אשר יהיה בו מום. כל דבר רע כי תועבת אדוני אלוהיך הוא. You shall not slaughter for Hashem your God an ox or a lamb or a kid in which there will be a blemish, any bad thing, because that is an abomination of Hashem your God. There's only one thing that I have to say. Everyone knows what a blemish is. In Hebrew, the word blemish is mum. Mum has the same gematria value, same numerical value as pe'ah, wig. A lot of people think that a wig is allowed in Judaism because women are obligated to cover their hair. In Judaism, women are obligated to cover their hair. This is in the Torah, in Bechtav, it's in Torah Be'al Peh. It's all over Torah. All women that are married have to cover their hair. Unfortunately, in the last couple of generations, the covering of hair has changed drastically, where people started taking laws upon their own hands, because at one point there was a rabbi that allowed to use wigs. This is many years ago. The problem is that when this very same rabbi allowed the wigs to happen, allowed the wigs to be put on, he wasn't talking about the same wigs that we have today. The wigs of that time were not even considered the equivalent of the head of a broom. How do we know this? The Rav Sheikh, when he first came to Israel, he said when the first Ashkenazi woman came to Israel with a wig, religious woman came with a wig, they started throwing stones at her and called her a sinner. And he said the wig that she was wearing, even a blind person would have thought it was a carpet. Even a blind person would have thought it was a broom. So kal v'chomer, of course, that the wigs of today that look more beautiful than natural hair, you know, they have the curls and it's red and it's this color and it's that color and it's all the way.
Is that okay?
No, it's not only not okay. It's worse than not having anything.
And the
Right, it's more beautiful.
That's my wife's main assertion. She loves that.
I tell you what Hashem
Okay,
told
but
us.
the takana is a completely. I mean, I know there's our opinions.
No big rabbi in all of Am Yisrael, no Gedolei Ador in all of Am Yisrael today says that the wig of today are okay. No rabbi. The rabbis of the past that have said wigs are okay.
Half of Mesharim, half of.
The fact that people sin does not mean it's okay. I'm telling you what Hashem says, and you know I'm not a judge or jury. The fact that 80% of Am Yisrael sins does not mean it's okay. You have to also understand, only a fifth of Am Yisrael left Egypt. That means that 80% of Am Yisrael was killed in Egypt in the plague of darkness. 80% was killed. Some people say only 1 out of 50, not 1 out of 5, only 1 out of 50 left Egypt. And some people say, some midrashim even say, 1 out of 500 left Egypt, meaning that 499 died. So meaning...
There's 600,000 left, right? So
600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 40. It's not 600,000 men total. There's obviously children below the age of 20, and there's many men above the age of 60. No, the smallest estimate is somewhere in the neighborhood of around 10 million, The average estimate is probably closer to 15, 16 million.
So that's 10 times 50 million. We're even in Egypt, though, according.
Some estimates say that there was even much more than that.
Start.
Yeah, there's much. Some people say it's much more than that even. Point is that the fact that many people sin doesn't mean that Hashem is not going to do anything about it. You know, in every Friday you read the Mizmorim, and it says Hashem sat down, did nothing during the Mabul. The Mabul was destroying the world. The flood was destroying the world. Hashem didn't do anything. He let the world be destroyed. Meaning that Hashem is a righteous judge. He will do what's right at all times. The fact that people sin, it's not his fault. There's a law. He says, listen, a woman has to be modest. A woman that chooses not to be modest because she wants to wear tank tops, and she doesn't want to wear sleeves, and she doesn't want to cover her knees, and she doesn't want to wear a kisui rosh, some type of a scarf to cover her hair or a hat, and she wants to have a wig that looks, like one of these runway models, and she wants to wear one of these shirts that shows her figure, and she wants to do all of those things. Go ahead, do it. You have free choice. You can do whatever you want. Doesn't mean it's good. Doesn't mean that you're gonna get to Gan Eden with it.
That loophole is just not applicable here, then.
What loophole?
That as long as you're covering, that you can't see her hair. As long as that hair is covered, doesn't matter what it's covered with.
No, absolutely not. So it's like saying that as long as a woman is covered, she's modest. It's completely false. If a woman is wearing a bodysuit, she's
you can see her form.
Okay.
So
the purpose of covering the hair is not only to cover the hair. It's also
the look,
to cover. It's for modesty.
Cover the attraction.
No, there's two things. It's for modesty and to cover the hair. There's two things. Modesty and covering the hair is considered a beautifying. A woman's hair is considered beautifying.
To make you attract, to show it.
And in addition to that, there's also an element of modesty. Now, if a woman has a wig, that's not modest. The wig is too long, too curly, too sexy.
There is the things of
Technically, that wig makes her look better than her natural born hair.
They do straining on the wigs. They do straining, color, and all that. So
Then that's not fulfilling. It's fulfilling one mitzvah, but not the other.
The wigs is better than the natural.
שערות אישה ערווה.
The entire woman is considered a rava. Masechet Sotah says the entire woman is considered a
It's
rava, not
more
just that
attractive
one.
with the wig. Than the
Okay, let's move forward. Listen, I tell you what is written. You do what you want with it. Bezat Hashem, we all do tshuva. The purpose of every Jew is to do tshuva every day. Each one of us is supposed to do tshuva every day.
How can you go into a sin knowing you're going to do tshuva for it? Isn't that kind of fake? You say, "Oh, I'll do this, but then I'm going to do tshuva later."
No. That's a rasha. No, you're not supposed to intentionally do a sin knowing that with the
That
goal
whole
of
thing is
doing tshuva.
intentional. You're intentionally breaking Shabbat to go
Haomer
shul.
ichtav ve'ashuv. Someone that says, "I'll sin today and repent for it tomorrow,"
never.
they don't let him repent. Meaning he doesn't survive long enough to repent. It's a big sin. So a person needs to do tshuva. Each person needs to understand that there are laws, and we need to learn. We're obligated to learn the laws, and we're obligated to follow them. If you don't know what the law is, then you're obligated to learn it. If as you're not going to learn all of the laws in one day, you're not going to learn all the laws in 1 week. But there's a certain basic minimum that we need to do, and basic minimum we need to try to learn. The key is to do our best, but our best, Hashem knows what our best is, not our best, today I'm going to keep 1 mitzvah, tomorrow maybe 2. We have to try more than just
How does tshuva exist then for those people?
How does
tshuva exist? For
tshuva-
those people who just, break Shabbat. Or who haven't kept it yet.
someone
Or maybe have kept it, fallen off the derech, all these other
tshuva? The Torah was created 974 generations before the world was put into existence. When Hashem created the Torah, He created tshuva, which means that He created tshuva before He created the world. The reason why He created tshuva before He created the world is because He knew that the world could not exist without tshuva. If there was only the midat adin, if there was only the midah of judgment that Hashem had, where if you either pass or fail, we wouldn't survive a week. He would literally create the world and destroy the world
There'd be no
every day, because everyone would sin too much and not live long enough to repent for the sins. So he created tshuva. Tshuva had to be created because that gives us an opportunity to fix ourselves. Tshuva is technically against all logic. Someone can literally sin for 30, 40, 50 years and then do a real tshuva, not one of these fake tshuvas where they're saying, listen, I'm going to keep one or two mitzvot that are convenient for me, but the rest of my wicked ways I'm going to continue. Someone who's literally taking on themselves tshuva is someone that's not only taking on some mitzvot today, but is also taking on the obligation and the commitment to continue learning more mitzvot and to continue doing more mitzvot. No one can just say, listen, I'm going to keep Shabbat, I'm going to keep kosher, and that's it, I'm done. I should be in the same place as Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not going to happen. Someone that wants to be here when the Mashiach comes needs to learn Torah, needs to do tefillin, needs to keep kosher, needs to keep nidah, it's tarat mishpacha, it's family purity. There's certain things you need to keep. But we can't do something we don't know. If I told you there's a certain law that the 613th commandment is something, and you don't know what it is, you can't do something you don't know what it is. So you're not judged as harsh as someone who does know what it is. So then someone could say, okay, so it's better off not knowing. Ignorance is not a plea when you go to Shamayim. You can't go up to Shamayim, no, Hashem, I didn't know. Why? Because Hashem put you in this world to learn. To learn about these mitzvot. You're obligated to go and find out, and you'll be given an opportunity to find. That's why it says also in Parashat Vayetchanan, it says after we sin and do idol worship with the god of wood and the god of stone, we're going to look for the real God. And you said, when you look for me with all of your heart, you will find me. What does it mean? Any Jew that wants to do tshuva is given the opportunity. There's no such thing as no tshuva. Whether you're a violator of Shabbat or you murdered 500 people, you could do tshuva. Of course, there's the cheshbon of Shamayim. There's, every sin, everyone has to pay for it. But you don't necessarily lose the world to come. But there are certain sins that Hashem Yerachem are sins that unless you do tshuva in your life, you're in a very, very big situation, very big problem. Someone that dies a mechalel Shabbat without doing tshuva. Someone that dies with a lot of wasted seed without doing tshuva. Having sex with no point. Outside of marriage. No point, purpose of having kids. Wasting seed. Someone who's an idol worshiper. There's all forms of idol worshiper. Idol worshipping money, idol worshipping statues, idol worshipping, false religions. Someone that dies without doing tefillin. Someone that dies without brit milah. It's a big problem.
And you really think break one of these, you can't get out of it. You already know about the tshuva process. You've been religious for several years. You break something. You know about the tshuva process. How can you do the tshuva process if you don't think about it as you're doing whatever right you're doing?
I don't understand the question.
Once you do an avera, how do you do tshuva for it if you already know about doing tshuva?
I don't understand. What do you mean? How do you do a tshuva on something?
You said you can't do something. You do a sin and then do tshuva for it. You can't go into
you don't do it anymore.
No. If you wait, you're telling me
you can't go into a sin knowing you're going to do tshuva for it.
So you're telling me you know that something is a sin, you're intentionally doing it?
Yes, but
Okay.
you're not thinking at that same time, oh, I'm going to do tshuva for it. But you do know subconsciously the concept of tshuva. You've gone over it. You've read it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
You don't do it anymore.
How does it
tshuva.
apply?
Tshuva is done at different times. So, for example, someone that just started becoming religious will maybe start with keeping tefillin.
Let's
He
say
knows
they're
that
religious for 10
violating.
years or 20 years or whatever.
It could be. Okay. So let's. Let's explain it with Shabbat. All right. So let's explain it with Shabbat. Usually, it's the easiest thing for people to understand. So now you have somebody that violated Shabbat. He's age 30. He has not kept Shabbat until today. He's 30 years old. He starts keeping Shabbat. From now to the rest of his life, he's going to keep Shabbat. He did tshuva in a sense that he kept Shabbat, right? But then he shows up to Shemaim, and I say, okay, you kept Shabbat, Baruch Hashem. You kept this, you kept that, you became more religious, Baruch Hashem, but you still have 17 years of missing Shabbat. Meaning, they don't count from the age 0. Age 0 doesn't count. So, 13 years when he was obligated with Shabbat, he didn't keep Shabbat, so for the next 17 years, until he became 30, he was obligated to keep Shabbat. So he's missing 17 years of Shabbat. So how does somebody make up for those Shabbats that he missed? By making other people keep Shabbat. So, for example, someone that's doing tshuva, over time he's going to learn a few things. He convinces friends. He can convince his family. He can convince his kids. Other people will end up keeping Shabbat because of him. Each time one of these people keeps Shabbat, it's like he kept Shabbat. So now he has him, and now he convinced his wife to keep Shabbat. So now it's like he's keeping 2 Shabbats. Over time, each year it's another 52 Shabbats. He has him and 5 kids. So now he has 7 Shabbats every week.
What about Tefillin and B'chat HaMazon?
So isn't he already in Shemayim? So how does he do that?
No. This is while he's still in this world. He hasn't died yet. I just told you he's going to keep Shabbat for the rest of his life. Now, even if he starts doing Shabbat at age 30.
But let's say he breaks it at age 40. He does something.
Right.
How does he do tshuva for it?
Does Shabbat.
But
He goes back to keeping it then.
Yeah.
He goes back to keeping it.
Starting all over.
He's still going to have to pay for the sin.
Exactly.
But it's not going to be to the same magnitude. Meaning, okay, someone that dies a Mechalel Shabbat, Befaresia, meaning someone that openly violating Shabbat, drives on Shabbat, and does not do tshuva.
Or anything on that sin on that caliber and dies without doing tshuva for it. Where do you know what happens?
It's the worst sin. It's the worst sin in Judaism, Shabbat. The worst sin in Judaism. There's nothing worse than that. The only one that you get worse sin in this world and worse punishment in this world for is someone that that causes other people to make sins. So, for example, you have a friend that is keeping Shabbat and you try to convince him to break Shabbat. Someone like that, they close the doors of tshuva for him. That's how much they hate him in Shemayim. But aside from that, someone that dies a violator of Shabbat, it's the worst thing you can do.
I thought wasting seed was the worst.
There's a few things. This is one of them.
No, it's on the same caliber.
They're the same. Yes, but there's 3 significant ones. This is one of them. What does it mean? Significant ones is that there are 7 gates of hell. Each one of the gates is worse than the other, but each one ends at some point. Except the 7th one.
The 7th one doesn't end. Right.
7th one doesn't end. The ones that go there are the ones that waste seed and the ones that mechalel Shabbat.
And he's not done tshuva for it.
I have not done tshuva for it. If they have not done tshuva for wasting seed or for mechalel Shabbat, the suffering does not end. But if they did tshuva, yes, they pay for the sin, but it's nowhere near it. It's nowhere near as much. And if they do a real tshuva be'ava, they can even turn it into a mitzvah. They can even turn their whole life into one big Shabbat.
Other Avrot would turn it to.
So there is a form of tshuva where you could turn everything into a big positive. The key is that's why it's very, very important to 1, continuously add more mitzvot to your life. 2, try to convince other people to be religious, especially people that are close to you. Because when you get to Shemayim, they're going to ask you, who was next to you, who was not next to you, what did you do? One of these people gets to Shemayim before you. They're going to say, hey, Steve, you keep Shabbat? No, I didn't keep Shabbat. Wait a minute, but you were friends with your own. Yeah, but I don't know. But he keeps Shabbat. Yeah, I know, but he never told me about it. I don't understand what this Shabbat stuff is. What, he never told you to keep Shabbat? No, he never told me. He goes, bring your own up here. And your own has to pay the din of cheshbon that he didn't tell him. It's not that you should tell your friends and family to keep Shabbat. You're obligated to tell them. You have to rebuke your friends and brothers and sisters. No, without him, there's a form of doing it.
Doing it appropriately is what I'm saying.
There's a form of doing it appropriately. but you are obligated to rebuke and tell people what needs to be done when you see them sinning. So that's people that say, listen, I don't want to tell him the truth, I don't want to turn him off. That type of mentality is not only a bad mentality, but it's an actually outright sin. Moving on into a couple of pages forward. אתה בא אל הארץ אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך, לא תלמד לעשות כתועבות הגויים ההם. When you come to the land that Hashem your God gives you, you shall not learn to act according to the abominations of those nations. This is one of the sources that we have, for we cannot act like the goyim. Each Jew has to understand that he is the son of the king, which makes him a prince. A prince cannot do whatever he wants. A prince, similar to the king, has limitations. When Hashem told us that we have to choose a king, He told the king, you're going to have limitations. You have certain responsibilities. So this king, he says to him, okay, they're going to pick you. Hashem is going to pick this king. Great. He says, רק לא ירבה לו סוסים, ולא ישיב את העם מצרימה, למען הרבות סוס, ואדוני אמר לכם, לא תוסיפו לשוב בדרך הזה עוד, ולא ירבה לו נשים, ולא יסור לבבו וכסף וזהב, ולא ירבה לו מאוד. So it says, and he shall not have, only he shall not have too many horses for himself, so that he will not return the people to Egypt in order to increase horses, meaning you shouldn't deal with too much monetary stuff and business, for Hashem has sent to you. You shall no longer return to this road again, and he shall not have too many wives, so that his heart not turn astray, and he shall not greatly increase silver and gold for himself. It shall be that when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself 2 copies of this Torah in a book from before the Kohanim, the Levites. It shall be with him, and he shall read from it all the days of his life, so that he will learn to fear Hashem as God, to observe all the words of his Torah, and these decrees to perform them. So he's talking about the king. He's not talking about a regular guy. He's talking about the king that Hashem chose. Number 1 position. Nobody bigger than the king, obviously, outside of Hashem. So the king is obligated, even though he has a lot of privileges, he still has obligations. One of these obligations is not to deal too much with money, not to deal too much with too many women. He can marry more than 1 woman. He can marry up to 18 women. But he's saying even that has to be controlled. Everything has to be controlled. And he has to read Torah every day for all of his life. And he has to carry it with him at all times. So that he can learn to fear Hashem and observe all of these Torah commandments. Why does it say, fear Hashem and then observe the commandments? Because the only way someone can truly get to a point of observing the commandments is if he understands just a little tiny bit of who he's dealing with. If someone understands that he's dealing with the creator of the world, the one that created the heaven and the earth, the one that makes our cells move, the one that makes the atoms turn, the one that makes us able to breathe, see, hear, smell, touch, the one that controls our parnasah and our shlom bayit, the one that controls our children's future and whether we're even able to have kids, the one that controls how our brain functions and whether we're going to die tomorrow or live another 50 years. The one that controls every single protein cell in the human body to the point where if there's one protein that's folded the wrong way, you become a neche. You become someone that can no longer walk. One protein. There's trillions and trillions of proteins in your body. If one protein has something called a protein fold that's not the right one, just one protein out of trillions of them, Someone can't walk, or they can't see, or they have some type of disease that they can't live for more than a week. One protein. So if he understands that he's dealing with this, it's much easier to fear him. If he fears him, then he will do what he says. But if he doesn't fear him, there's no limitation to how much of a Rasha he's going to be. Someone that does not fear Hashem can never be a tzaddik. Can never be a tzaddik. Can never be tzaddik. That's why it's obligated. Even the king is obligated to learn Torah every day, because the only way to fear Hashem is to understand the significance of Hashem. But since we cannot understand the significance of Hashem, we can only understand the significance of His work. And there's the work that we see, and then there's the work that we learn about. The work that we see is the world we live in. The work that we can read about, which is the Torah. When we learn Torah, you see the divine nature of the Torah, so much so to the point where you realize the fact that we even exist is a miracle of itself. We must obviously have a purpose. So if we have all this purpose, and Hashem is even calling us a prince amongst the rest of the people, then that means that I have a special mission. Everyone has a mission. The Chinese people have a mission. The Indian people have a mission. The American people have a mission. The German people have a mission. Even the Arabs have a mission. What do you think? ISIS just appeared? Hashem doesn't know about them? What do you think? Iran just appeared? Hashem forgot about them? He's letting them... he's trying to figure out a plan of how to deal with this bomb. He's maybe going to put his vote in for Congress. They have a mission. They are part of the mission. They were already written about in Sefer Daniel. They were already written about in the book of Daniel. Everything that's happening right now with Congress and with the Iran deal, everyone should say, Baruch Hashem, the prophecy is coming true. We are in the end of days. Which also means we're running out of time to do tshuva. If someone realizes who he's dealing with, much easier to fear Hashem, much easier to do tshuva, much easier to do the right thing, much easier to see the good in everything. But someone that thinks that everything is in his own power, it's very, very hard to connect to Hashem. Pretty much impossible, because in essence you're treating yourself like an idol. Now, Hashem says there are levels. Each person has a level of how deep to connect to Hashem. And there's something here, we talk about Emunah from time to time. And this parasha has a secret. It's a big secret in this parasha of how to reach the highest level of Emunah. When you reach the highest level of Emunah, you have the easiest life. Everything is easy. Problems are easy. Problems are easy. Iran deals, no big deal. Someone suing you, no big deal. Parnasah, no big deal. Whether you have, you don't have, it's all the same. When someone has true emunah, he understands that everything is from Shamayim. And it's to my benefit. Just like Rabbi Akiva said, everything that the merciful one does is only the best. It's only for the best. There's no such thing as sometimes it's good, sometimes it's better. Everything that he does can only be the best possible choice. There's all the choices that are available. Everything that happens is the best possible outcome. He never chooses second best. Meaning that the time that you got into a car accident, chas v'chalila, someone got into a car accident, it's the best thing that ever happened to them. Someone that lost all of his money in the stock market, best thing that ever happened to them. Imagine that. When you don't have Emunah, it sounds crazy to you. But this parasha has something to say, has a secret of how to reach a high level of Emunah, which sounds too simple to do, but it's very difficult and only can be done with effort.
Let's hear it.
Tamim tiyeh im Adonai Elohecha. Tamim tiyeh im Adonai Elohecha. That's the secret. You have to believe in Hashem so wholeheartedly, get to a point of blind faith. No questions. Don't be so sophisticated. I need an explanation for this. I need an explanation for that. I need to know why this happened. Where was Hashem during the Shoah? Where was Hashem during the Iran deal? Where was Hashem during this? Where was that? Where was this? How did this? Give me this. Give me that. The people that believe purely on blind faith without even knowing the fundamental reasons of everything, but know that it has to be the best possible choice, that's full Emunah.
That's knowing.
But there were times when we had, like today, two types of people that believe. Some that are more sophisticated, scientific thinkers. They want proofs. They want to know certain things. I need to know this, I need to know this, I need to know this, I need to know this. Philosophical proofs, debates, this, that, the other thing. And there's people who say, listen, I know what I know, but I believe regardless of what I know. During the times where we had the pogroms and the inquisitions and all of the going against us, trying to force us to convert, the ones that were the sophisticated believers, the ones with all the proofs, the ones with all the science, unfortunately were the very same ones that converted to Christianity. And the ones that were tmimim with Hashem, that believed without the proofs, just believed because it's Hashem. If I was smart enough to understand Him, I would be Him. That's what the Rambam says. Can't think that you could think hard enough to understand Him. Because if you were able to understand Him, you would be Him. That's why when people ask you, who do you...
that you can't understand it is understanding.
Understanding that you can't understand Him, it's a form of understanding. But it's not understanding. So another jab at the... the point of what I'm trying to say to you is that getting to the point of being tmimim with Hashem, wholeheartedly believing Him, blind faith, is the easiest form of life. It's the greatest life you could possibly have. Because everything has an easy explanation. This is what Hashem wants. This is the best for me. I just got into a point where I don't have a job, or that I want, or a money that's enough, or I don't know, I got into a flat tire, or I got this happen, or that happened, or this happened, all these things that happen in the world. If every time something bad happens to you, and you think it's like a bad thing, it's very easy to be depressed. Because most of life is aggravation. Most of life is traffic. Most of life is chasing parnasah. Most of life is overworking and underpaid. You feel like you work a lot more than what you're actually getting paid for. Most of life is arguing. Most of life is being sick or knowing someone that's sick, that's making you sick. Heartache, headache. Most of life is not exactly fun and games. So if you look at life, you see there's only a little bit of element of good in it. So if you look at all of those things, as I just said, as bad, then technically life is not worth it. But this is not a shiur for suicide people. We're not supposed to give you guys the hotline number for Suicide Watch after the shiur. What is the point? The point is that all of that, what you're seeing as bad, you're just looking at it the wrong way. Everything that's bad is good. Even something as far-reaching as anti-Semitism. Even the fact that most of the world hates Jews is the best thing that ever happened to Jews. Why? Because even with the fact, just one explanation, even with all the anti-Semitism that you have in the world, with over 40% of America alone, which is technically considered one of the allies, America alone is considered over 40% anti-Semitic. Europe, Hashem and Hashem, some places are considered almost 100% anti-Semitic. Obviously, the Middle East, the percentages keep getting worse and worse in different parts of the world. Some places that are not so anti-Semitic is because they don't know we exist, like China. With the exception of an old Keilah that lived there about 900 years ago that's no longer there, they don't really know what Jews are. So over there, they look at you and they think you're strange. That you're taking a picture of them because it's like, you're a tourist, and they're taking a picture of you because they think that you came from a zoo.
How do you explain those Iranians who are so anti-Semitic that they're pro-Satmar and pro-Nitzurei Karta, but they're Semitic themselves?
I'll explain that in a second. But the answer to the question of anti-Semitism is that when you have so many people hate the Jews, how could anti-Semitism be good? With all of that anti-Semitism, we still have nearly 80% of Jewish Americans intermarrying, out of faith, marrying non-Jews. We still have most of the world
It's more proof that
not keeping mitzvot and becoming one with the goyim, with the other nations, which is a strict violation of the Torah. Which means that if they liked us, there'd be 100% assimilation. Am Yisrael would cease to exist. If with all the bad treatment, we still want to be with 80% of us still want to be with them, what if they liked us? Am Yisrael would disappear in a week. Hashem Yirachem. That's what we have to understand. Even the bad is good for us. Where was Hashem in the Shoah? Where was Hashem during the Holocaust? He was right there causing it. Because right before the Holocaust, we reached nearly 80% assimilation. So yes, it's not fun to hear. Yes, it's a very sensitive subject. Yes, it was a horrible event that we cry for at least once or twice or 3 or 10 times a year for. You can't cry enough for it. 6 million or more of us died. It's horrible. But the answer is the same. Where was it? Where was Hashem? He was there. Why did it happen? Because of the very same reason that he wrote in the Torah, why something like that would happen. So, as far as the Neturei Karta in Machshimam, the answer to that is that those people have a special place in Gehenom because they are causing more Chilul Hashem than I think is humanly possible. That's number one. 2, the Iranians don't actually like them, they're using them. They're using them for their own purposes to make them look good. They say, no, we don't hate the Jews, we hate the Zionists, we hate Israel, we don't hate the religious people. Even though that's technically true to some extent with most of the world, it's not true with the Iranians. The Iranians hate all of us alike. They want to destroy all of Am Yisrael, the religious and non-religious.
Isn't there a small Gila of Jews in Iran?
Yes,
Do they have rights though?
Yeah.
Like Iran should know they shouldn't have any rights.
To some extent. In general, Goyim, in general, non-Jews actually respect, and in some cases even like religious Jews. Most of the world that's anti-Semitic doesn't like non-religious Jews. And that's actually one of the laws of Hashem, that when we're religious, people fear us, to the point of even animals fearing us. A lion will fear a person that's religious. We talked about it in last week's Shiur in Daniel, the book of Daniel, when he was thrown into the hole full of lions. He was there for several days. They didn't touch him because he was a holy person. But as soon as they put another person in there, that was obviously not even the shoe of Daniel, it was just the person that caused Daniel to go in there, they ate him in the air. So, when someone is holy, even his enemies become his friends. That's in Tehillim. His enemies become his friends. When someone is doing what Hashem wants, Hashem will turn his enemies into his friends. When someone is doing everything against Hashem, Hashem elachem. So for example, when we talked about Zera Levatala, talked about wasting seed, sometimes a person looks in the mirror and he says, how come I don't have any luck? You see a secret in mazal. Mazal in Hebrew is luck. Right? Mazal, the Rashi Tevot, is mezid zera levatala. Purposefully wasting seed. Someone that's wasting seed is losing is pretty much selling his mazal to the Satan.
Isn't it worse than it's considered worse than murder?
Well, it's not. It's the same as murder.
It's actually murder.
It's that actually you're murdering 300 million people each time.
Yeah.
Each seed scientifically they looked at each. It's somewhere around 300 million seeds per time that the semen comes out of a human body. Next thing is, we're almost done. Now Hashem is talking to us about the laws of war. Even war has laws. And there are certain people that are not qualified to fight. So he tells us, and I'll just read it in English because it's relevant to all of you as far as English, you all understand English. Then the officer shall speak to the people, saying, who is the man who has built a new house and has not inaugurated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war, and another man will inaugurate it. So he's saying if somebody just built a house, we're about to go to war, somebody just built a house, but he hasn't really put it, he hasn't moved into it yet. He's not going to war with us. Let him stay home. He's going to think about his house. He's going to constantly think about his house to the point he's not going to focus on the war. He's going to die. He's going to cause other people to die. Let him stay home with his house. Okay. Someone who has planted a vineyard and not redeemed it, made a big investment in a vineyard. He's going to think about it. He just did it. He hasn't got his money back. Let him stay home. We don't want him as a soldier. Let him return to his house. And who is a man who has betrothed a woman and not married her? Someone who just got engaged but hasn't got married yet. Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in war and another man will marry her. It's understandable. You just got engaged. He's excited. We're about to get married. Now I'm going to war. He's not going to be focused on the war. It's going to cause other people to die. Okay, let him go home. He can't be a soldier. Who is the man who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house, and let him not melt the heart of his fellows like his heart. As you notice, a lot more words for the guy that fears, the guy that's scared. There's two types of scared. Two types of scared. Rabbi Akiva says, one type of scared is because he has no faith in Hashem. He doesn't, he's just scared. He thinks he's going to die. He doesn't know. I'm weak. Their army is big. They have 70 million people in Iran, or 90 million people in Iran. We only have 13 million. And some of them are Arabs. They have big weapons. We sometimes do. They have this. We don't. He's scared. He thinks he's going to die. He has lack of Emunah. He thinks he needs big numbers to beat them. Especially when all of his buddies, the guy with the house, the guy with the business, the guy with the engagement, all those people left also. So he's alone. He's even more scared now. We had 100, we had 10 million, now we have 50. He's even more scared. He already had lack of emunah, now he's even more scared. That's one kind of scared. Another type of scared is, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, is someone that actually did have emunah. And also had yirat shamayim, had fear of Hashem. So much so to the point where he realized that he's not righteous enough to survive a war. And this is why when someone was doing tefillin and they made the mistake of talking in between the tefillin of yad to tefillin of rosh, if you make that mistake, it's not the end of the world. You make an extra bracha. You make one bracha when you put the tefillin of yad, and if you don't talk, you just put the tefillin of rosh and you're done. But if you make a mistake where after you put the tefillin of yad and before you put the tefillin of rosh you talk, even if it's accidental speech, you have to make another bracha, a different bracha. But someone that truly knew Torah, truly was righteous, knew that even though you could fix the sin, it's still a sin. They would tell him, stay home, don't come to war, lest you die at war. You're not righteous enough to go to war. You're not going to survive. And if you don't survive, you cause other people to die. So unlike today, the people that went to war wasn't just being strong. The people that went to war had to be tzaddikim. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu says you had 1,000 people that would fight and 1,000 people that would learn Torah. For each one that would fight, the person would learn Torah. Because why? Because the one that wins the wars is not the weapon, it's not the Iron Dome, it's not the Congress, it's not the $2 billion America gives us, it's not the votes, it's not the Uzi, it's not the special ships, it's not the Air Force, it's not Bibi Netanyahu or Obama, it's not even the soldiers. It's the one that created all of it. That's who wins wars. The sooner we realize that, the easier winning the wars will be. There's no such thing as losing a war if Hashem is on your side. The next rule of war is when you are conquering a place, one of the things that Hashem says is do not cut down the trees that bear fruit. You can cut, in those days, not like today, a lot of the fighting would be done on the ground. Right? So to go climb and do things like that, they would need a lot of wood. So to get to a new place, they'd cut a bunch of trees, make ladders, and move on forward. Hashem says you're not allowed to cut down the trees that are fruit trees. לא תשחית את העצה לנדוח עליו גרזן כי ממנו תאכל ואותו לא תכרת כי האדם עץ השדה לבוא מפניך במצור. He says you shall not cut...
There's an underlying danger. You can cut them down.
פיקוח נפש, פיקוח נפש. But this is not considered pikuach nefesh. This is not considered pikuach nefesh. You shall not cut it down. It says, do not destroy its trees by swinging an axe against them. For from it you will eat, and you shall not cut it down. Is the tree of the field a man? That it should enter the seed before you. Only a tree that you know is not a food tree. You're not allowed to eat a
יש לי
fruit tree.
עץ של פפאיה, הוא נפל.
Wait, you're not allowed to eat fruit?
You're not allowed to cut down a fruit tree.
But obviously you should eat from it.
That's the point. Why, we're trying to get to a point. If you guys focus, we'll finish in 2 minutes.
זה 40.
One of the interesting parts of this verse, it says inside the verse, okay, we have the pshat, which is, okay, don't cut the fruit tree. Great. Number one, how is this relevant to our life? Right? We're not going to war. And I don't think anybody here has a fruit tree that they need to make a decision of whether to cut it down or not. And even if we did go to war, we're not going to have this problem because we don't have the same type of wars as the past. Right? Okay, so why am I telling you this verse out of all of the verses? Because inside the verse is something very interesting. It says, Ki Adam etz asadeh. Ki Adam etz asadeh. What does it mean? And the man is the tree of the garden. What do you mean the man is the tree of the garden? The Torah is constantly comparing things, as you know, in parables and analogies. The Torah to water, man to a tree, and so on. Different examples. One of the examples, like I said, is a tree, but not just a man is not a Jew is not only compared to a tree, but it's compared specifically to a fruit tree, because a fruit tree bears fruit. And that fruit is either going to be good fruit, and delicious, and fruitful, and will multiply, and could potentially grow new every season, and serve purposes and help people, or it could be rotten. Same thing with a man. A man could either bear fruit and do many mitzvot and help many other people, by influencing them, by teaching them, by convincing them to do the right thing, by having children that are doing the right thing, spouses and friends and so on. And he could be just like a fruit tree, bearing unlimited amount of fruit every season. And that's why in your prayer in Shachrit, if you remember, it says, Etz chaim ine machazikim ba, v'tomchea meushal. So we read this every day. What does it actually mean? Etz chaim ina machazikim ba. The tree of life is to the ones that cling to it. And those that support it are content. This is the literal meaning of it. What does it mean? The tree of life is to the ones that cling to it, and the ones that support it are content. Etz Chaim is a Talmid Chacham. Etz Chaim is someone that learns Torah. Is someone that's connected to Hashem day and night. Those that cling to that person and invest in them, support them, Tomchea, Ameushal. They're content, they're happy. Wait a minute, shouldn't it say that the Etz is happy? Why do they say that the Tomchea are happy? Shouldn't the Talmid Chacham should be happy? Why are the investors happy? It's the opposite, no? No, here's the great lesson of this verse. The one that gives tzedakah, he's the one that gets the reward. Because the tzaddik, he's going to get the parnasah with or without you. What do you think? You're going to give him the parnasah? What do you think? Hashem has created the heaven and the earth, but parnasah is limited? What do you think? He needs you. He needs your help to give this tzaddik a parnasah. He needs your help to give some tzedakah to the Beit Knesset, or to the Talmid Chacham, or to the rabbi who's doing kiruv, or any of these things. He needs you? No! He has plenty of other ways. But the one that invests in the one that's learning Torah, in the one that's teaching Torah, in the one that's doing what Hashem wants us to do, he's the one that benefits. Because either way, the tzaddik is going to get it. That's why Tomchea Meushal. Not the Etz is Meushal. The Etz is getting it anyway. He's already Meushal. He's already in a good position. He already has Olam Haba. But how are we going to get to Olam Haba? We're not learning Torah like he's learning. We're not doing mitzvot like he's doing. We have a few ifs in our life and a few buts in our life. How are we going to get there? I want to go. Tomchei HaMeushal. Investing in Kiruv, investing in Talmidim Chachamim, investing in them, and realizing that it can never be shochad. What the Parashat said in the beginning. Make sure it's not a bribe.
Right.
You do it full-hearted. You do a mitzvah because you need to do a mitzvah. Because you know, Etz Chaim Machazikim Ba v'Tomchei HaMeushal. I'm already getting a benefit. What, I want to ask him for another benefit on top of it? I'm already getting a benefit of Olam Haba for helping this righteous person learn Torah. For helping this righteous person save souls and make people do tshuva. I'm already getting big benefit. I'm going to ask him to give me extra even on top of it? What, am I crazy? The amount of benefit that this guy is giving me already for taking my tzedakah, I can't pay him enough. If I give him $1 million a day, just to be a partner with him for his learning Torah every day, it's not even enough to pay him back for what I'm going to get from him eventually in Olam Haba. I can't pay him enough. And that's why it says that Tomchea is Meushal. The ones that invest in it, they're the ones that benefit. Be'ezrat Hashem, we realize it, we do it, we get closer to Hashem with complete faith, and eventually get to a point where we all are Tmimim with Hashem.